My family invited my wife and me to repair our relationship, but they actually wanted to force me to divorce her and marry someone they liked, so I left. I am 35 years old and grew up in a small town with close-knit relationships, where everyone knows each other's business. People still wave to their neighbors from their porches, and Sunday dinners are the highlight of the week. It was a dying town, and I knew I had to leave. I had always been interested in photography, but my parents wanted me to grow up and help my father and brother run the farm. Don't get me wrong, I loved the farm. I grew up with horses, but I always felt like something was missing. I was happy with the way things were, but not completely satisfied. My brother Aaron is 3 years older than me. He is the only one who really listens to what I say. I remember when he went to college, he saved up his part-time money and bought me my first camera. I was so happy. I carried that camera everywhere and photographed everything I saw. It is still my prized possession. I did well in school and was a member of the school football team, so I easily got into university on a scholarship. I continued to play for the school team, and that's how I met Elena. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. With her blonde hair and bright smile, she could light up the darkest room and immediately catch my eye. She was part of the cheerleading squad, so she was at every game. I'm a shy person, and so was she, so it took us a long time to start talking. But when we did, I discovered that she shared my passion for photography. This common interest became the foundation of our friendship and eventually our love story. Now, when I formally asked Elena out on a date, she was a little hesitant, but she said yes. I was ecstatic. This was the most exciting thing that had ever happened to me. I carefully planned our first date, hoping to create the perfect date for this extraordinary woman who had captured my heart. I took Elena to a small Italian restaurant in the city center. The soft candlelight illuminated the cozy space, creating a warm and intimate atmosphere. Sitting across from each other, the air was filled with tension and anticipation. I couldn't help but be captivated by her charm, her smile and twinkling eyes in the flickering candlelight. We shared stories, laughter, and our favorite Italian dishes. Elena's initial hesitation seemed to fade with each passing moment. I learned about her childhood, her dreams, and her journey to the city where we met. It was a connection and an exploration, and after dinner we decided to go for a leisurely stroll in the nearby park. While strolling, Elena finally opened up to me and revealed a secret she had kept from everyone at university. You see, Elena is a single mother with a child named Harry who is only 2 years old. I was surprised to learn that Elena had become pregnant at the age of 16 because of her then-boyfriend Nick, with whom she was together. She thought he would be happy, but unfortunately Nick was not happy and decided to withdraw. She loved the child, so she did not want to give up no matter what the situation was. Fortunately, her parents supported her decision, and Nick's parents agreed to send Elena monthly child support. She decided not to contact Nick again. Elena told me all this with tears in her eyes. She went on to say that this was why she had never dated in the past 2 years. It was true that she had been carrying this burden alone for 2 years. She decided to open up to me and let me decide whether to pursue her after just one date. After learning all about her, I saw the vulnerability in her eyes and the weight of the story she had carried alone. At that moment, as Elena hesitated, waiting for my reaction, I had no hesitation in developing a feeling of admiration for her. I took her hand and expressed my honesty to her. I assured her that her past would not change the way I felt about her, and that her strength only deepened my admiration. I could see a mixture of relief and pride on Elena's face. She hadn't expected such an understanding response, and the burden on her seemed to have eased a little. The first date became a precious memory, the beginning of our love story over the next few years. I honestly didn't care if she had children or not, because I knew that if Elena was such a determined and honest person, then her children would be just as wonderful. We continued to date, and eventually, 6 months later, she introduced me to her parents. They welcomed me with open arms, showing the warmth and kindness that Elena herself exudes. Before long, I felt like I was part of their family. We shared stories over home-cooked meals, and I saw Elena's resilience and her genuine kindness. It was also the first time I met her precious 2-year-old son Harry. His eyes melted my heart as he toddled into the room, curious and innocent. Elena introduced us, and from that moment on, I knew my life was about to change. I won't lie, I'd always dreamed of becoming a father. When Harry took my hand between his little fingers and looked up at me, I fell in love with him just as I had with his mother. I couldn't imagine anyone abandoning him, but I knew that if I was going to lead a shitty life, I needed to step up. Elena never asked me to help out with Harry, because she had help at home, but despite that, I loved looking after her child with her. He has the cutest smile, and being with him makes me forget all the negative things in life. Elena and I have a great relationship, and she always encourages me to follow my passions. I decided to join the photography club at university, which opened up new possibilities for me. With my classes and football training every day, it was hard to keep up with the club, but in the long run, joining was a great decision because it helped me meet like-minded people, and I'm still in touch with them today. Once, when my parents came to visit me at university, I seized the opportunity to introduce Elena to them, hoping they would see her. At first, they seemed to appreciate her company, but then, during a private conversation, I told them about Harry. At first, their reaction was not good, and my parents were very shocked. My mother asked me if I was dating a single mother at university, and I said yes. My father also didn't believe it and asked if I was serious. Now, I firmly told them that I loved Elena just as much as I loved Harry, and that she was more than just a single mother, because she was someone I wanted to take care of for the rest of my life. My parents tried to talk me out of it, questioning my choice, which was understandable, but despite their attempts to dissuade me, I stood my ground. They eventually gave up, perhaps hoping that it was just a phase I would outgrow after university. I decided to take the risk and apply for a photography internship, to which my parents were firmly opposed. My father even told me that it was too feminine for me. I laughed and tried to explain that I had always loved taking pictures. They tried to dissuade me, but when I finally got the internship, there was nothing they could do. Elena, on the other hand, fully supported me. She believed in me and encouraged me to take this step. Even my brother was happy for me. He is now married and has returned to the farm. He has always liked being close to my father, and he obviously likes taking care of the land and animals. My parents, especially my father, are incredibly proud of my brother. He is my father's son, has taken over his business and wholeheartedly takes responsibility for the farm. They admire his dedication and are proud to have such a good son who is obedient and understands the family traditions. Although my parents never resented me, they always showed a hint of disappointment whenever I talked to them about my passion for photography. Without exactly being like my brother, the contrast was obvious, but they never blamed me for it. Instead, they hoped that I would find my own direction and carve my own path during my photography internship. I found myself immersed in a whirlwind of learning and creativity, with a heavy workload and often staying up late to perfect the art of storytelling through the lens. It was a challenging but fulfilling period that tested my dedication to photography. As the internship drew to a close, I was pleasantly surprised to be offered a full-time position as a photographer, which opened up a new chapter in my life. I found myself exploring corners of the world that only existed in my dreams. The opportunity to travel and capture the beauty around me was incredible. Each new city, culture, and landscape became a canvas for my camera, and I was immersed in this wonderful experience for the first time. I felt a deep sense of happiness and contentment that permeated my being. Yet this newfound joy was accompanied by a series of challenges. My busy work schedule meant that Elena and I maintained a long-distance relationship for 3 years, despite being in different places. I visited her and Harry as often as I could. She found a well-paid job as an accountant. Although it was hard being apart, our bond remained strong. That's why I've always loved Elena. She never resented me or doubted me, even when I was away from her. Eventually, I found a well-paid job that allowed me to settle down. I decided it was time to propose to Elena. I first asked her parents for their permission, because I didn't want to offend them and I'd known them for a long time. They were ecstatic at the news and couldn't wait to make me part of their family. When I decided to tell my parents about the matter, they had a complete opposite reaction. My mother was so shocked that she didn't know what to say and started yelling at me about how immature it was to marry a single mother like Elena. My father went so far as to say right to my face that this would be the worst mistake of my life and that I needed to find a woman who should have her own children, not take care of someone else's. My parents told me that I would be with her forever and that Elena had somehow tricked me into taking care of her son because his real father didn't. Their reaction really hurt me, and I was very sad that they thought of my future wife this way. I stood my ground and explained that for the past 3 years I had traveled the world tirelessly to establish myself as a photographer. Elena had supported me throughout this journey. She is a strong, independent woman with a good job. She urged me to propose to her, and she never asked me to take care of Harry. This is why I chose to bond with her child, and now I can't imagine my life without them. My parents didn't like my answer and tried to involve my brother and his wife. Surprisingly, my brother Alan didn't fully support my parents, but he didn't take any side either. He did point out that it was a heavy burden and responsibility, but his wife joined forces with my parents to try and convince me that there were better options than Elena. She even suggested introducing me to some of her friends. I left feeling frustrated and angry, as they all seemed to have joined forces against me. It was a difficult time and I felt so alone, misunderstood by those I had expected to support me, no matter what decision they made. I proposed to Elena, and with joy in her eyes, she said yes. This memory is deeply etched in my mind and remains the happiest day of my life. From the beginning, I told Elena that my family disapproved of our relationship. She was saddened by this, but she was kind-hearted and understood her family's point of view. She even told me that it was not too late to leave, considering that my family's opposition might put pressure on our relationship. I assured her that my decision was final and that I would not leave her or Harry until the end of my days. In the meantime, my family kept calling to try to change my mind, despite my repeated attempts to make them understand and respect my decision. They didn't think that Elena was right for me. It was a very difficult time for me, and at one point my mother even declared that they would not attend our wedding if I married Elena. I calmly replied that it was entirely her decision and that I would understand if they didn't attend my wedding. In the end, Elena and I chose to get married in court because I knew my family wouldn't be there, so there was no need for a big wedding. Her parents supported us and gave us their love because we didn't waste our savings on a big wedding and we had the money to buy a house together. Despite some difficulties, we have fulfilled our dream. Waking up every day with my wife by my side is the best feeling in the world. Harry is now 5 years old and he brings us so much joy. He is full of energy, curiosity, and laughter. Witnessing his growth and seeing that we've built together fills my heart with happiness. Even though our journey had its share of challenges, the love we share as a family makes every struggle worth it. After marrying Elena, I chose to distance myself from my parents to avoid their negativity. My happiness now revolved around Elena, Harry, and her parents. Work was going smoothly and everything fell into place just as I had envisioned. However, last week my brother, who hadn't reached out to me in a while, called. Seeing his name on my phone, I was surprised and I hesitated whether to answer the call or not. But I thought it might be an emergency, so I picked up the phone. He started by saying that he missed me a lot and apologized for not calling sooner. I was a little surprised because my brother rarely expresses his emotions, so I asked him if everything was okay. Then my brother told me that my parents wanted to try to mend our relationship by inviting Elena and me to the farm. I was surprised to hear this, as I had never thought that such a day would come. My brother asked if he could speak to my mother and put her on the phone. On the other end of the line was my mother's uncertain, slightly desperate voice. She said she hoped to repair the strained relationship between us, and expressed how much the family would like to see Elena and me at the family farm. I couldn't help but wonder if this was a reconciliation or just another episode in the family soap opera. My mother, on the other hand, insisted that they were truly sorry and were looking for an opportunity to rebuild our bond. I hesitated. The wounds of the past were still fresh, and the idea of reconnecting with my family was daunting. But deep down I longed for a resolution that would heal the rift that had developed over the past few months. I take a deep breath, thank my mother for her help, and assure her that she and Elena will be there this weekend. We leave Harry with Elena's parents and fly to my hometown. Upon arrival at the farm, my parents greet us warmly and welcome Elena with open arms. My brother and sister-in-law come over to give us hugs too. It's been so long since I've been away from my family, and it's great to be back. As I turned to look at the living room, I suddenly felt a pang of confusion, because there in front of me were familiar faces and close friends. I looked at my parents in confusion, and they told me that they had decided to invite some friends and family to welcome me home. I nodded and went in to say hello to everyone. My mother pulled me aside with a sly smile and introduced me to a woman named Gigi. I was taken aback and couldn't understand why she would introduce me to a stranger at what was supposed to be a family gathering. My mother went on to say that Gigi was the daughter of her high school best friend, who had recently gotten divorced. I nodded awkwardly, not knowing how to react. My mother continued that she felt Gigi and I would make a good couple. My confusion turned to suspicion. She began talking about how well we would look together and that maybe we should exchange phone numbers. I looked at my mother in disbelief and suddenly realized that this gathering was not just about repairing relationships. My parents had other intentions. One of them involved Gigi becoming a part of my life. I asked my mother why she was talking like that, since she knew I was already married. My father, who may have overheard the conversation, told me that he needed to speak to me in private. I reluctantly agreed and followed them to a room, leaving Elena alone to face the awkward stares of curious guests. My parents wasted no time in revealing their true intentions. "Mark, we arranged this meeting because we think it's time to reconsider your marriage to Elena," my father announced in an authoritative tone. I was shocked and couldn't believe my ears. They explained their reasoning, insisting that Gigi and her familiar background would be a better fit for me, someone they could approve of and who hadn't had a child with another man. "But I love Elena. We got married and we are living together. Why do you think it's a good idea to introduce me to Gigi?" I protested, trying to make sense of this surreal situation. My mother was unmoved and insisted that they were only thinking of my happiness and that one day I would thank them for helping me out of my current predicament. My father told me that Gigi was divorced, so she wouldn't mind marrying me if I could get a divorce from Elena as soon as possible. I stared at my parents for a few seconds, then started laughing. This all sounded so ridiculous. It was like a soap opera, but I couldn't believe it was really happening in my real life. My parents had invited me under the pretext of mending fences, just to convince me to divorce the love of my life and marry someone else, just because they hated my choice. They really thought I would be convinced. My father, probably in self-defense, tried to justify their actions by saying that they had also discussed the matter with my brother and sister-in-law. According to him, everyone agreed that I had made a huge mistake marrying Elena. This comment pushed me over the edge. Although I usually keep my cool, I could not hold back my anger. I have always had a lot of respect for my parents, but this was too much. I raised my voice and expressed how embarrassed and hurt I felt by their attempts to get me to leave my wife and children. I made it clear that I no longer held out hope that they would change. This was a turning point. As I walked into the backyard, I noticed Elena was speaking to me in a low voice, and I whispered to her that we had to leave immediately. She looked shocked, but my expression convinced her beyond doubt. My brother and his wife insisted that we stay, but I didn't even acknowledge them. I was very angry with my brother because he had known about the plan all along and allowed it to happen. I didn't want to create a scene, so I quietly rearranged our flight tickets and left during the flight. I told Elena about the conversation between my parents and me. She was as shocked as I was and a little angry that they had tried to force me to get a divorce. After that, I kept getting calls and texts from my parents and brother over the weekend. He thought I shouldn't have yelled at my parents, that I should have been a better son, and said they knew me best and I should at least listen to them. Ida, on the other hand, had an argument with her parents because they tried to convince her to leave her wife and child. Just because they didn't. Our marriage renewal. I'd like to thank everyone for their support during this difficult time. I think everyone agrees that my parents' actions were completely unreasonable. The reason I feel guilty about my decision to yell at them and leave the party is because, as the youngest child in the family, I have never disobeyed my parents like this. I know they don't like my wife and I don't mind that, but to actually try to convince me of it is absolutely despicable. What surprised me most was that my brother was also involved in this. We have always been close since we were kids, and he has always supported my passions, but I never expected him to oppose my decision to marry Elena. I feel this has hurt me more than my parents, because my brother has betrayed me. He could have easily warned me and saved me from all this, but he chose to remain silent. I plan to call my brother tomorrow, once I have calmed down from this whole thing. I'm back with an update. I texted my brother Alan and asked him to call me when he had a moment, as I knew he was busy at the farm all day. He called me in the evening and I confessed to him what had happened between my parents and me. I asked him point-blank if he had known about it all along. Alan told me that he did know about it and that he thought Gigi was a wonderful woman and that she could make me happy if she was given the chance. I told him that we hadn't done anything and that the family had treated Elena and me really badly. Alan then told me that everyone loved me and wanted me to be happy. So I asked Alan why he felt that Elena and I were not happy. He thought about it for a while and then told me that I needed to realize that Harry would never be my biological son, and that he thought I needed to divorce Elena so that I could marry Gigi and hopefully we could start a family and carry on our family traditions. I couldn't believe what my brother was saying. It was clear that he had been influenced too much by his parents' ideas and, as their beautiful son, he was only willing to do what they approved of. So when I didn't listen to my family and married someone they hated, my brother didn't understand me. We argued back and forth a few times, and it was clear that he wouldn't support my marriage. He suggested that I should perhaps consider their point of view and think about the consequences of my actions, as it would seriously affect our family and make them feel betrayed and hurt. I hung up the phone. I'm not going to lie, but I cried for a while after I got off the phone with my brother. I never thought that one day my own brother would look at me with such disdain. I know that if my family, including my brother, feels this way about my marriage, then they will never change their minds. I don't want Elena and Harry to go through this kind of hostile drama. I've never regretted marrying her, so I need to let go of those people who don't want to be a part of our lives. I hope Harry can grow up surrounded by people who truly love and support him. Update 3. Thanks to everyone who has been following my posts. Regarding my posts, this article seems to have gone viral and I have received many requests for updates from strangers. So I will update here. It has been 5 months since my last update, and my life has become much more peaceful since my last argument with my family. I have always wanted to legally adopt Harry, so that no one can question whether he is my son or not. Last week, I finally talked to my wife and her parents about this. It was really touching to see the smiles on their faces when they supported my decision. Harry was born without Nick ever being there, and although Nick's parents have provided monthly support, they have not been involved in Harry's life since his birth. The legal process can be a challenging journey, but I have been there for Harry for many years, so I can't wait to see him legally recognized as my son one day. Now it's my parents' turn. They've never apologized to me since it happened, and they've never acknowledged how disappointing their actions were in trying to break up my marriage. After my last conversation with my brother, I just texted my parents in the family group chat to say that I can't take their negativity and drama anymore, that I wish them all the best for the future, and to make it clear that they shouldn't contact me in response. My mother sent a threatening message saying that if I didn't do as they asked, they would make sure I wasn't included in their will. I didn't reply to her because, quite frankly, I didn't care. I wanted them to leave everything to my brother and family because I was very happy with what I had. Meanwhile, my wife and I have been getting on very well over the past few months. At first, Elena was very hurt by what my parents did that day, but she let it go over time. She is a kind person who believes that we should always focus on the positive things in life, which I completely agree with. I wake up every morning feeling immense joy when I look at her peacefully lying next to me. Her face is a constant reminder of the love we share. No matter what life throws at us, we can always find strength in each other, and will continue to do so in the future. I hope this is the last update I make on this matter, as I want to close this chapter forever and focus on my future life.